Hi, everyone. My name is Evelina, and I am one of the 6 founding members of Untamed, which is a Women's Plus Web3 community in APAC, which we recently founded back in March of 2022. As an aside to that, my other professional hat is that I lead the marketing efforts for creators, entertainment, media, and news at Meta, and that includes both Instagram and Facebook, and I'm based in Singapore. In Hollywood terms, you can think of each web as a movie sequel. Each movie sequel builds on top of the storyline of the one that came before it and expands upon the work, just like each web. So if you think of this idea of this movie sequel, and as we know, movie sequels, the plot gets thicker, the characters are richer, the interplay becomes more complex, right? That's really, in movie terms, been the evolution of the web. So if you go to Web 1, that's the first movie. That's the first development stage, which emerged in the late 80s to 90s. And these were open protocols and applications built on top of that internet infrastructure, which at the time allowed for static read-only pages. So this one-way communication highway, right? So if you're of a certain age, you might remember your box computer, which made this screeching sound to dial up to your internet. So it was very much a one-way communication platform. Over the 90s, technologies were developed and aggressively tech companies were born, which in turn accelerated the space and commercial opportunities of the web were realized. And instead of this free transfer of data, companies created these walled gardens to house their collection of data in these private servers. This gave companies or tech companies an edge, and as such, algorithms were built and users were able to move to a read and interact web. So from going from a one-way communication highway, we've suddenly moved to a two-way communication highway where, which is the web we know today. It's the web where we can read, write, interact, respond, and comment. Inevitably, though, technological advancement will never cease, and Web3 is very much this next iteration of the web. And Web3 is different and interesting because now developers are building on a blockchain, and the blockchain's ultimate value proposition is that it puts the end user in control, and it gives autonomy and ownership right to that end user. So Web3 will allow us to own our own content, own our own data, and through it own our own communities. And that's why it's truly transformational. Web3 technologies have the potential to create and realize the greatest transfer of power we have seen. So we're moving from this shared economy to an ownership-based economy. And the ownership of everything in this next evolution of the web will be everyone's focus. Whether you're an individual or you're a business owner in Web3, what it affords us is the ability to own our own data, our content and communities, and bring them, actually really importantly, across different Web3 applications. That's a really radical shift from where we are today, where we're largely renting our time, our craft, and our communities, and we're locked into one single app. A second defining feature of Web3, which I think is really important to note as well, is this feeling of presence. So there's a ton of technologies and companies that are building towards this, but Web3 in the future will feel much more lifelike than it is now. So we're going to move away from these kind of like formal text-based conversations. So I might send a text or an email or potentially an audio message that might feel quite formal. And we're going to move to more kind of these ephemeral, in the moment conversations, like you're talking to a colleague at a water cooler, or like you might be just talking to your child in the kitchen. So it's going to be more chit chat, more lifelike, and they won't be as static and more fluid. So I think we're going to really see the shift into a feeling of more presence and more immersion. So Untamed is a recently founded Web3 Women Plus community in APAC, and the plus stands for non-binary individuals. And together with 5 other incredible founding members, we officially launched Untamed in March of 2022. Each of us come from different professional backgrounds, and I think we all immediately understood that there was this need for a women's plus community in Web3 for the sector. Untamed's mission is to decode the world of Web3 for women plus, enabling their growth, igniting their potential, and elevating their success. That's our North Star. And, you know, we've heard it all too often, but it does need repeating. Women plus are significantly underrepresented in the tech industry, and especially in decision-making roles. And there was a recent report by Citibank who valued Web3 as a $13 trillion future opportunity. So if you think about it, that's a huge opportunity that Women Plus are set to miss out on if we don't educate ourselves and start participating in now. So I think we believe at Untamed that one of our biggest challenges is to correct the limiting beliefs that keep women and non-binary people from entering the space, just like in the finance world. And, you know, it really does stem back from generations and a lot of societal conditioning. You know, we as women, we haven't been taught, we've been taught to be the earners, right? We haven't been taught to be the winners, creators, debaters of big ideas. And that's the problem, right? So at Untamed, we're really trying to enable women's potential in this space. And finally, the biggest thing that we're trying to do at APAC is really, Untamed is focus on impact. And our hope is to reshape the narrative about impact in Web3. And when I say impact, I mean anything from like ethics to sustainability to governance, wealth creation, mental health. And so as we build and grow our Untamed community, our intention is to keep impact top of mind and really help our members become aware of these factors in their Web3 journey. I'm personally fascinated by the power Web3 has to shift popular culture. And, you know, disruption in culture often happens at the edges. And if you pay close attention to the fringes of society, you'll start to see these new cultural trends forming, and they're forming in response to what's being made available through the technology of Web3. And I think DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, are of particular interest to me right now, because I think how these new organizational structures are being formed is a place to watch, because they're going to be ripe for innovation. I think they're going to breed creativity like crazy. And, you know, my prediction is that there are going to be some groundbreaking DAOs in the near future. I especially love, and I think there's the use case of the Ukraine DAO, which was a response to the Russian invasion, which just shows how quickly a Web3 community in the formation of a DAO can mobilize and fundraise for a cause. And I believe they raised around 7 million ETH by selling an NFT of the Ukrainian flag. But what was truly celebrated by the Ukraine DAO was that it raised the money quickly and they shipped the money quickly. And that was fundamental in their success. Another project that I think is great is, or the topic rather, is digital sovereignty, which is super interesting. And I recently met the founder of Meta APAC, which is building a Web3 platform to enable us to own our own personal data. And by owning our own personal data, we can then share and monetize and decide how that data is then used. And I think this idea of digital sovereignty is a really important concept and will continue to be an important concept in Web3 and one to watch. And then finally, just in terms of like the impact piece, Oceanverse is a great NFT project. They're basically a collective of artists, but they're giving all of their they're giving a share of their profits rather back into regenerating oceans and these conservation areas that have been threatened by pollution and destruction. So I think that's another one to check out. This rule applies to anything. If you don't, you only learn by doing. So I would advocate any curious soul about Web3 to just get started, just do. YouTube is a great resource. So, you know, I think for anyone entering this space, you'll likely come from an interest. And that interest might be, I'm looking at investing, or I'm a creator and artist. How can this new space help me, you know, distribute my art? Or I'm a business owner and I'm looking for new business models. So you'll probably start there. And then what I typically see happening is you go in with what you're looking for, and then you come out the other end with 10 different things that you're suddenly interested in. And I would say, go wild, have fun. There is so much opportunity in Web3. Open a wallet, sign up to an exchange, check out NFT collections on OpenSea or Rarible. Super, super early. It's a wild space. There is no straight learning journey. It's a maze. So have fun and get involved. Ultimately, users won't use something because it's decentralized. They will use something because it's either a better product, or it solves a problem, or it gives them better access or greater access than was available to them before. So I think this usability piece of Web3 is really important, and it needs to be solved, because it's that piece that will unlock mass adoption. And the everyday person needs to feel like Web3 is friction-free. And at the moment, it's not friction-free, it's clunky, it's hard to use, there are different chains. And I think that's one really important point. So the usability to enable mass adoption. The second point is inclusivity, because I think this is a really fundamental issue with Web3 right now. And I think, you know, it will fail if it doesn't include, it isn't fully inclusive. And what I mean by fully inclusive is that it is inclusive by not only bringing in different representative voices to build future tech, but also it's inclusive that it enables new communities, new groups to benefit from what is being created in Web3. And when I say benefit, through NFTs, through investing, through DAOs. At the moment, Web3 still represents a white male privileged socio-demographic group who are building and benefiting. And so you've got NFTs that are costing thousands. Some memberships to DAOs are costing thousands. So with this, we're only perpetuating the same power hierarchies that existed before. So this really needs to be broken in order for just more inclusivity, more representation to come into the space. Technology isn't good or bad in and of itself. It's what the technology enables us to do that matters. So if we agree that Web3 is a medium, but it's actually better connections and greater impact, that's the goal, then we can start to realize how technologies of Web3 might get us to deeper, more meaningful and more rewarding connections and greater impact, which is enabled by the technology. So really what I mean by that is, if you strip away the layers of hype, the short-term economics, the PR stunts, and there's a lot of that right now in the Web3 space. What you'll see is this technology, which is a blockchain, and this technology has the potential to provide unmediated access and ownership. So this direct communication line with your community, which allows for new revenue models. And the cherry on top of that is that it also allows, or has the potential to allow, your community to win alongside you if they have revenue share. So why the Web3 promise matters is that it helps to enable better connections and greater impact.